is W. Andre Allen. The W stands for Willard. I'm a local artist here on South Beach. I started painting in 1999. The work that I was doing was not like the work I have right here. It was more of glass vases and bowls and platters. I went to an African Expo in '99, and this artist from Puerto Rico was doing African motifs on glass platters, and I find it fascinating that he actually painted, was painting backwards. And I just went out and bought plates, glass plates, and a bunch of paint, and from that point on, I just kept trying to see if I can get the understanding of how he did it, and that's what inspired everything. It's weird because when I started to use canvas and wood, when I used those, it felt okay, but then when I used glass, it felt better. It felt easier. And then I realized, many years later, the reason why the glass felt more familiar and more comfortable was because of my dyslexia. So my vision when I paint backwards. And at the time when I started to paint on glass, I never knew the dyslexia wasn't even nowhere near any thought of my mind at all. Until, about maybe 3 years ago, a doctor came into my gallery and said, "Explain your work to me." And I explained the work to him, and he said, "Oh, that's a part of dyslexia." And I was like, "Really?" So he gave me all these little things on YouTube to check out, and did all that, and realized that this is a part of dyslexia. I worked with canvas before, and I worked with wood before, and all these things I've taught myself, how far as to work with. Through the experience with the other mediums besides the glass, it never felt comfortable, and I never really enjoyed doing it as much as I enjoyed it when I started to use glass. And working with the glass, the reason why I found out was because of having dyslexia. And to explain that is, a doctor came in one day about 2 or 3 years ago, and he had asked me to explain my process of how I'm doing my work. So I explained to him, I work backwards. And then he did, and that's when he said to me, "Oh, that's part of dyslexia." Because my vision when I paint, I see things different than a lot of people. And he said, "Oh, well, check these things out on YouTube, and you'll learn more about it, the reason why you paint the way you paint." So that's when I found out, which was great. Because I tell the story to every person who walks in the gallery. It's a great story. I talk to a lot of kids about it, because growing up in Connecticut, I had dyslexia. I knew about that, but as far as the numbers and words and things like that, but I never knew that this was a part of it as well. I got a book by a really dear friend of mine, Cy Tomley, if I'm pronouncing that right. And I was just going through his work, and a friend of mine says, "Look through this, I think this is really gonna inspire you." And I ran across this one photo that he did with drips. And a dripping process is not the easiest thing in the world to do. I thought it was, just drip and let it drip, because you figure it's moving anyway, And I've learned through other curators, as I was doing these drips, I would, if they're around, I'll say, "What do you think about this?" And then it's, "Oh, no, you're not nowhere near it yet." So the more I practice, the more I really got a hold of understanding the technique of the drip process that I'm doing right now. And he's a big inspiration for this body of work that I have right now. Working at a full-time job for 18 years for a particular company, and still doing this, I work seasonal. So I worked 7 months in the restaurant business, and I was off for 5 months. So during my 5 months, I would work more and more towards my artwork. And the more I moved towards it, I kept feeling that I can't wait to be able to work for myself. And then finally, at my 18th year at this particular restaurant, I decided I couldn't do this anymore. And I had to step out on faith, and I had enough belief in myself and faith in myself that I can do this. And during that 1 year in August 2010, August 7th, the owner, I don't know if I can even say this, the owner of Oceana Cruise Line walked in my studio, and I wasn't there for, I don't know, for 2 weeks. And he's been coming in I came in, I was wondering where you were at. I was going through some pity party or whatever. And he said, well, I have a question for you. If I needed this done 10, 20, 30 times, are you able to do it? And I didn't get it at first. I was like, who are you? And then he says, I'm the owner of Oceana Cruise Line, blah, blah, blah. No, prestigious holding and the whole thing. And I'm like, okay. And then I realized, oh, wow. And at this point in my life, I was negative in the bank. I really had no money. And that man, Frank Del Rio, walked in and changed my whole world. Because from that point, his first order with me was 80 pieces for the ship. So it was such an amazing thing to have someone who looked at my work and started collecting my work. He didn't do one piece. He felt strong enough about it that he ordered 85 pieces. So in the end, I think it ended up being like 60 pieces, which is on the marina right now in a lot of the rooms. So it was a great inspiration from that point on. A year later, I ended up leaving my job. The first time, actually after I've done all the work and everything shipped out to Italy for the marina. And to go on the boat when the boat came to Miami and to actually walk in and to different rooms and see your work there. It's like your kids, you haven't seen it for a while. And I walked in and I was like, this can't be real. Wow. And Frank has such a great vision of what he wants. And from what I was thinking of what I've seen, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be interesting to see how he balances out these colors with what he has, aboard the ship. And when I walked in there, it was mind blowing. I never felt so good about anything that I've done in my life like this before, because it was all my work. And it was great to walk up and see that, and I was just so happy. When Frank Del Rio, the owner of Oceana, walked in my gallery, it was a thing of that day. I got up in the morning and I remember texting my best friend, and I told him, I said, I'm closing my gallery up, and that was August 7th. Never forget it. And he said, go sit in your gallery and feel sorry for yourself, because someone's gonna walk in there. And that day, Frank walked in, and coming from a place where it was hard for me to sell one piece of work, to someone believing in me and looking at me going, this work is really great, it'll look great on my ship, more or less be part of my start of my big collection, more or less, and to order that amount of pieces for the ship it changed my whole world. As Frank was talking to me, I just felt within myself, my world was just changing dramatically. And to this day, from 2010 to 2013, my life has not stopped because of Frank. And I tell him that, he's like, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But he really, really put me on a great path, because that day, that studio was closing. So for me, a lot of artists, or most artists maybe, is pre-planned. And I go from my gut feeling of how I feel. I pick out 3 colors more or less of what I do, and I just start from there and I work. And with me working backwards, the piece is laid flat, so I'm working this way, but all the work is on the other side. So I just keep going. I have a vision of what I want, but I don't think about it too much. I'll just see wherever it goes from this point to this point. And when I flip it over, it is what it is. I choose to keep it or I wash it off. I'm originally from New England, from Connecticut. I graduated high school in '83 and went to college and have a degree. My degree is in advertising and marketing, mainly focusing towards the record business. And I traveled a lot, a lot of different artists. My godmother is a recording artist, a Grammy Award-winning recording artist. She's a vocal trainer for Madonna, Beyonce, Gloria Estefan. I can go on and on. And watching her perform on stage, record in the studio, all that artistic part really influenced me a lot. And when I first started painting, the first time was I used to try to paint her clothes for the tour. Everybody, I put everybody I paint on their sleeves and everything like that. So that started that part of that whole painting process. And then I stopped for a long time and start touring with Joss Stone and doing things like that. And after a while, when I was on tour with Joss Stone, I was missing painting because I was working as a personal assistant. So the painting thing was not happening at all. So when I would come home for 1 or 2 days or maybe a week, out of that whole time, I would come home and I wouldn't want to leave. You know, and then after a while, in the beginning it was like, okay, I'm coming home to see my family, and I take off and leave. But after a while, the more I got home, the more I came home, I just knew that I was missing painting like crazy. So luckily, they ended up letting me go, which was great, because I saw a lot of the world. Otherwise, I would never have seen it. But that's all that I needed, that God gave me. That was it. It was okay. You've seen this. You traveled all through Europe. That's it. You know, it's time to go back home and do the things you want to do, and not work for someone else. I'm very social, so I do a lot of. I used to do a lot of dinner parties. This summer I haven't really done that much, but I do a lot of dinner parties with friends. They're having a big one on Thursday for 4th of July. I love to cook. I come from a family. We have 4 restaurants in Connecticut, and so since I was 12 years old, and I'm 40 something right now. And so being on the restaurant business for so long with my parents, it's in my blood. So I just cook whenever chance I get. Curry lamb with rosemary, thyme, sage, garlic, Worcester sauce, all marinated. And then I did roasted potatoes with onions that's tossed in also curry and a black truffle salt, and just tossed in olive oil and baked in the oven. So, but I love food, period. I'm a foodie. Pasta. I think it's going to be an amazing experience, first of all. I've never painted anywhere else but in my studio. So to paint on a ship with the ocean view right there, you know, I'm dying to see what's going to happen with my work, you know. And when I meet potential collectors, or I meet just anyone who appreciates my work, it does something to you as an artist, you know. When I'm a big prayer. I'm spiritual in a certain way because of the way I was brought up. So, you know, my prayer always is, you know, God, send people to my studio. It's not about selling the work, you know. For me, the reaction that I get from people who come here and they just smile and they're happy to be around my work, it's an amazing feeling. There's a lady that comes in my gallery here, and she comes and she just sits on the couch, and I always see her. When she first came here, I was like, may I help you? She says, no, your work soothes me and it calms me. So I'll be coming to visit her once in a while. And she comes in and she sits there, and that's all she does. And I don't bother her. She leaves, she'll say, all right, Andre, have a good day, thank you. And that's one of the experience. There's one young man who used to come in here, he came in here for over a month, but somehow I was missing him. And I finally one day came in, it was on my birthday, on a birthday party, and he said, I've been looking for you for a while. He said, I come in here once in a while, and when I feel down, and he was homeless. And he said, I come here because it makes me feel better. I don't worry about the things when I look at your work. So experiences like that make me really feel good about talking about my work with potential collectors, with someone who appreciates art. So it just feels good. Hi, my name is W. Andre Allen. The W stands for Willard. I'm an artist here in South Florida, on South Beach, and you're watching World Art Auction.